Todd, Steph, Mark, Bob, Tim, Rick, and Susan. The only one missing is Dave Marsh. So we'll start with the minutes from the last meeting that Rick sent around. Any comments, feedback on that? I looked at those, they look good to me.
I
Tim?
move we approve the minutes as presented.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved and unanimously. Treasurer's report?
Pretty much status quo. I'm not sure when a reasonable time to expect the hay money. I would guess a little bit later in the fall. He's been
Yeah.
cutting and stuff. I mean, I've seen it, but I don't know how he does it all at once or what, as far as the payment, so. We shall look for it soon.
Good.
You might get a second cutting on
Really?
a couple of the fields that you did first.
Yeah, with the moisture we've had, that's a good chance.
It's not cut at all?
No, last time I looked,
What's
2
that?
days ago, the field at Malone.
No, I don't think he got
Malone's
to it.
not cut,
Just not at all this season then, right?
but he doesn't, I don't,
Doesn't yield much, maybe?
I'm trying to think whether he, I guess he has baled that in the past,
Yeah.
but it's not good for forage.
Yeah,
Right.
Not even cows, not even.
And he lost the hay.
It's probably mulch bales, I would guess.
yeah.
Some of the hay got wet, in the field closest to Malone Road on Mount Jeff, got left.
Just the
Rain.
ground was just sopped, you mean?
Yeah, he cut it, and then while he was waiting for it to dry, we got rain, and so he couldn't get to it.
Yep. Yeah, that happened in a fair amount of places out there.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm not even sure he cut all of the northernmost field on the east side.
All right.
He
I
did?
think it is.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, that's where the wagon is, yes, he did get that.
Any updates on the Hubbardston Hikes?
No, I did preview a hike from Westminster to Hubbardston, that.
Oh, that from the state forest?
Yes, from the
through
state forest that goes into the Streeter Road property that the town owns. And it's a beautiful, the Westminster State Forest is beautiful.
Those nice trails.
Yeah, it's amazing woods in there. But it goes through a piece of private property before it gets to the town-owned land, and haven't had a chance to approach the owner about having a walk in there.
How would you orchestrate that hike? Only in it's out and back?
Yeah, it would, I think it'd have to be out and back, cause there's not much place to park on Streeter Road.
Yeah, but even
You can
still,
do
if
a-
you were gonna go into the forest.
You can do a small loop within Westminster State Forest, but it would basically be it
That's-
would be a lollipop
Yeah,
hike.
A lollipop. I've heard that.
Yeah, and then you were trying to arrange something with Mike Stoll,
Yes, yeah, he knows where there's some, plants that eat insects.
oh yeah,
Pitcher plants?
Pitcher plants, thank you, yes. And, they're not blooming now, we missed the window on that, so we have to try again next year.
okay.
Maybe it won't be quite so wet next year. They grow in wet places.
Well, it's a good year for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any update on Destiny's Garden?
She's still painting mushrooms. My yard is covered in mushrooms. They're cute. I'm not arguing. They're very cute. But yeah, so we're hoping to have the mushrooms out there soon and do probably some more planting. I think she wants to put a few more plants out there, so.
For the next
Mhm.
go around. I
Gotta
think
do
it would
gotta
make
do
more.
pretty soon.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it make more sense though to not have them be weathered before they need to be weathered and save it for the spring, or she wants to get it?
They're already, they're like hostas and.
No, I
leaves.
meant the mushrooms. They
Oh.
have to go through a winter before they're, I don't know. then you have to store them for a
They're
winter.
outside anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole point is they're meant to be
That's right,
outside and
yeah.
hold up to the weather, so if they don't make it through the first winter, we should probably know about it. You know? That way we can adjust.
Because the garden tour is June 22.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and I just need a chance to talk to her. I'll take her to tea sometime or
Okay.
something to get some ideas. And to help bring some of that stuff
Yeah.
out, to schlep it out. you
Yeah.
know?
Luckily, it's very light. She made some corrections and everything is relatively light.
That
So
makes sense.
that's a plus.
Yeah.
So even the mushrooms are light?
Yeah, they're very light. They're not concrete like we originally were
Oh, what are they,
gonna
what'd you
do.
make them out of?
They're like bowls and bunt pans and things like that, things that were gonna be thrown away. And she painted them, they're upside down, and then we have a threaded rod that goes through the top. My husband drilled holes in them and they're held on by nuts. So they're all painted, and then the base, the threaded rod will go into something that will make it look more mushroomy. We have a few different things like a buoy and PVC pipe and
Wider
things like
than-
that. Yeah,
yeah.
stuff so it'll make it look like there's gonna be no
Okay.
two alike. So there's little ones,
That
there's
sounds
big
pretty
ones.
much guaranteed.
Yes, yeah, all kinds of repurposed, upcycled, whatever as you wanna call it, but
I'm intrigued.
nothing's like breakable, it's not like there'll be broken glass or anything like that. So, it will hold up even if it flips.
Sorry, I just didn't know how to turn the camera off, we're finished.
Oh, knock on the
okay.
door in there.
Oh,
All right, that sounds good.
Knock on it. You-
knock on it?
Yeah, knock,
Will they hear me?
hopefully.
The, land prioritization, group,
Cross that word out.
we'll get
There's no
rid of
such
that.
thing as a
We'll put that in the
subcommittee, right?
agenda.
Team.
Yeah, we will not be a subcommittee.
That was a
Uh,
very, I wish I'd gone to that, but I
We-
didn't.
Yeah, we will.
The, one of the key things that we're trying to accomplish, last month was get to have a meeting with, Mike Stoll and Chris Monroe about the trail system on the far side of the town to help in, one of our major focuses, is, trail interconnectivity, both inter-town and intra-town. With intra-town being a little higher, no, not a little, definitely a higher priority than, inter-town. And because of the makeup of the committee, of the group, we're, pretty familiar with the properties and trails, whether publicized or unpublicized, et cetera, on the western side, from the center to the western side of the town, but not very knowledgeable about what's potential on the eastern side of the town. And Chris and Mike are extremely knowledgeable. Mark was extremely knowledgeable about that too. And Mark provided us with a I don't know, draft master trail map. I don't know what we want to call that. Is that a good name? That's got there's a lot of trails over this. We had a meeting about a week ago, in fact, probably exactly a week ago, I think. And the Chris and Mike were there, and they provided a wealth of information. So our next step, we're gonna try and have them take Mark's map and then highlight it with a lot of some of the trails. Quite a few of them have wet areas. Some wet areas are not resolvable. Some wet areas might. The quality of the trail, some might be dead-ended. Some trails might be suitable for hikers but not equestrians, etc. So we want to be able to annotate Mark's map. They had some additional information, a few things that weren't on it, as well as that kind of information that I just talked about. So the three of us can talk a little bit maybe after the meeting, just to see what information that Mark can help provide so that we can best gather that information from Chris and Mike.
Okay, sure.
Let's see, open space plan status for that.
no changes from here.
Not here. I did send the survey results out to
Yep.
the select board and the ad hoc committee. I've got no comments on it. I'm not sure that I expected any, but they have it, so. And I'm kind of fleshing out the draft of section 8 right now, which is the goals section, and once I get some verbiage put in there without being specific about goals, then we'll have to have a conversation about what goals we want to include in the plan. My thought is I'll just make a list of all the goals that came out of the ad hoc committee meetings and out of the surveys, send them out to everybody, and we can either do it at a regular meeting or
Yeah.
have a separate meeting for that.
Well, probably gather some input so you get a little bit of a head start, and then maybe at the meeting, at our meeting, instead of just starting from scratch on it, you can compile the input from the group and
Right,
and then have a more focused conversation about it.
yeah,
Yeah, if we can do that at the October meeting, that would be good.
yeah, okay.
What's the rough steps in the process prior to sending in a draft to DCR?
These are the last, I mean, the goals, the
Action plan.
vision goals,
Yeah, and the action plan is not.
action plan, that's right.
The hard part.
Yeah, oh, that.
Yeah, and it might make sense to include that in the discussion on the goals, because if you can't come up with a plan to meet the goals, then there's no point in having that goal.
Yeah.
So, I was
Reach for the stars.
coincidentally looking at the last open space plan to see the action plan and how much of it was
Yeah.
What would you say?
was done. There was a couple things done. So I think we really need to just be more realistic. I mean,
Yeah.
if there's not money to do it, if there's not manpower to do it, if there's not
Yep.
time to do it, then there's no point in setting as a goal.
Yep.
The good news is we're already working on a couple of things that will be definitely goals, because they were very highly talked about in both the ad hoc meeting and it came through in the survey as well. So we kind of have a head start, but don't tell anybody.
Sounds good. Did anybody make the MRTC Massachusetts Regional Trails Coalition meeting? I had an ill horse that I didn't make it to that meeting. I did get at the Chris Mike Stoll gathering with Rick Tim and myself. Chris commented.
I know he was there, yeah, or on it.
Yep. And, cause he's on the, actual,
Board.
He's on the board. Yeah.
So, but at any rate, it, wasn't terribly productive, I guess. I'll paraphrase Chris's comments, that it wasn't terribly productive. They're looking for a lot of money, and basically some of the core things that need to get done that they're looking for money for, and they were maybe looking for Mass Regional help from, is the kind of things that Tim, Rick, and myself are doing. And from Chris's viewpoint, it's much better if people within the town work on those kinds of things, because it requires a lot of detailed information, like the information that Mark provided, the information that we know about, the information that Mike and Chris provided, and to try and have an outside group or something that gets paid to do it, you're paying a lot of money for something that's very difficult for somebody who doesn't have that inside information to do. At any rate, the meeting wasn't terribly productive from Chris's viewpoint, and we'll just see what happens as a follow-up. Any other comments to that?
I think Christopher said that each of the towns in the planning district, there's 30 of them, would have to come up with something like $30,000 to help s-
25,000, he said.
25,000,
Still.
to support this project, and that,
It's not gonna happen in this
no,
climate,
I don't think so.
Yes.
At any rate, so there's a lot of good work being done relative to trails. Probably waiting for this group to, if and when they ever come up with something, and if and when it ever gets supported financially, we're better off going down the path that we're going. And there's other towns that are really doing things right now relative to, I'll call it trail stuff. A lot of it related to the Wherever Trail Subcommittee group, headed up by Brett Russ. And so there's a lot of work being done along those lines. And things just like Dave Marsh, who missed tonight, but he's doing it not necessarily as part of our organization, but part of that Wherever Trail Subcommittee, putting together a project to clean out the trail from Rice Hill to Reese Hill, which that name confusion got clarified, so. I don't know if did I discuss that at the last meeting? Maybe.
Rice to Reese?
Huh?
Yeah, I waded through the stuff that you.
At any rate, I'll just have a quick recap. So, up in Hubbardston, I think that's in Hubbardston, up behind Dave's place and Cindy Schlender's place is a Rice property, Edgar Rice. And from his property, there's an old cart path that goes right over to Route 62. And where it ends is right where the Reese property is, R-I-I-S. And so people refer to Rice Hill, it's really Reese Hill. And there's a great view from the top of that. It's still all open. There's still a little remnants of an orchard there. A lot of foundation work from where there's no buildings left, but there's a lot of old foundation stuff there. Mark's walked that, and there's a opportunity for a really great loop there that would start at the Rice property, right off Fisher Road. It's literally, Fisher Road ends at the Rice property.
Where's Fisher Road?
It's off.
It's in Barry.
Okay, that's why I was
It's
like,
in-
like,
it's in Fisher Road, well, it's an old road.
Everything we're talking about here is in Barry.
Okay,
The first part of it is still Fisher Road, then it dead ends and becomes just a dirt road down to the Burnshire River. And DCR has a bridge across there now for logging, so it can carry any kind of weight, because they take logging trucks across it. And initially, they weren't gonna allow passage across that, but now they've changed their mind, they put a ramp up to it. Humans can get across it, even equestrians can snake around one rock on the far side of it, so, because it's gated there. And then that goes up the hill into Hubbardston, again up behind Dave Marsh and Cindy Schlender's property, behind, whose farm is that right there?
Ladybug.
Oh, Ladybug Farm.
Ladybug, right up behind Ladybug in that area.
Now the orchard, is that like, is there still apple trees out there? Are any of them non-such?
Oh, what,
That's where-
on the Reese property?
Well, Ladybug Farm is where.
Oh,
Yeah,
on
that's where it
Ladybug?
was hybridized, right?
Yeah.
That's the story I heard, but there's also a place over on Healdville that still has one.
I have 4.
Do you?
Yeah, they're
Oh,
babies.
cool. Where did you get them?
I bought them online.
Okay.
I'll tell you where. You can buy them, they're grafted.
Dwarf?
They're grafted.
Yeah.
So, but they're still
What do
non-such.
they taste like?
I don't know, I don't have, they're babies.
Oh,
I don't have any apples yet.
I've had
I'm
a
just
few.
trying to
Maybe you don't eat babies.
I'm just trying, no, I'm trying to,
None-such apples are really good.
yeah.
You've had it, so it's
Yeah, somebody at our farm, when they were riding there, they had a tree or two in their yard,
Really?
and they're absolutely fantastic. They were really good.
So mine, like, I just planted them, I'm
Oh.
just trying to keep the deer and the porcupines
Oh,
away
good
from them
luck.
right now. Oh, no, I have it all found, like, you are not going near this, there's perimeters and, yeah. Okay.
So,
Well,
and
good luck.
I'll end the Rice Reese thing
Sorry.
with just a word on Reese. So Reese came over from Denmark when he was about 21, something like that, and went into New York City, where he built a big name for himself trying to help the situation, the poverty situation in New York City, and he did a great job of it. Became a well-known writer, a confidant to Teddy Roosevelt, etc. Then after about 30 years of that, he decided he wanted to get out into the countryside, so he looked around and ended up, that property is in Barry. So, but he looked around and found that hill in Barry and moved in there. So there's a lot of books. He wrote a book about his experiences there, so that's a little bit about, as opposed to Rice. Rice is a long time name in Barry.
Yeah, it's one of the
Reed-
founding families in Barry.
What's that?
It was one of the founding families in Barry.
Yeah. In fact, there was a Dan Rice, I think, who was a distant relative that lives, who passed away a few years ago, that lived just off of Westminster, on Williamsville Cutoff. He was a vet, so, and he used to ride all up and around there, so maybe he knew from visiting his relatives or something what all the lands are like that. All right, that's enough on that. The Beaver Pond, our tractor is now a lawn ornament out in the field. So I haven't done. It's just, Steph and I were coming back from putting some hay out in our big hay slow feeder where we put 800-pound bales of hay, and it just stopped.
Big one or the little one?
Big one.
Oh.
That's super helpful.
So it really brings up an
We know what's
interest.
wrong with it.
Brings up an interesting, it's got a backhoe on it that's now on the ground, so you can't put it onto a trailer or anything, because you can't get the hydraulics off the ground, so so we're trying to fix it in the field, so,
Oh,
and I got a couple things I'm gonna try. We're gonna narrow down to a fuels problem, so. But when we get that fixed, we'll proceed with that, getting a culvert down there, so hopefully we'll get that fixed soon. Opera funds, that was a requested item for the lifts, and it's been a good topic, so, who brought that up, Rick? So,
Yeah, I didn't follow up on it.
well, Rick's comment was, we ought to think about what we're gonna
Oh,
do with
yeah,
that money.
I mean, we're not obviously gonna be working on anything this fall, but, if in fact we have to use the money next year,
Fiscal year or calendar year or what?
calendar year, I presume.
Calendar, I think.
Well, 12
But
months.
it's, it's gonna be a use.
So it has to be used by the end of,
December.
24?
Has to be committed, but in our case, a small project like this essentially means it has to be spent.
So it's gonna be a use it or lose it, and I'd hate to lose it.
Yeah.
Even if
Oh,
we can
yeah.
only do part of a project.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we could definitely do something.
So what's priority for us?
Well, why don't we, instead of just brainstorming here right now, why don't we take folks take that as an action, just to come up with some ideas, but we can.
Well, it has to go to that ADA trail,
Yeah,
that was our
yeah.
proposals,
Yeah,
so,
so let's just think about options of what we can do with that, if talk about it at our next meeting. How's that? All right, new business. Tim had just a comment on activity at Mount Jeff, so.
Yep, found out, there's an organization called Parks on the Air, and it's,
On the air?
Parks on the Air, and it's people who have a ham radio, and they'll set up an antenna at a state park, or in this case Hubbardston State Forest, actually Mount Jefferson Conservation Area, where they got good reception. Unlike down here in the center of town for cell phones, up at Mount Jeff, the reception for ham radios is great. He was talking to people from Louisiana, Kentucky, Utah, Florida.
What is it like when you say ham radio?
He puts a pole in the ground that's maybe 10 feet tall, and then he runs two like 15-meter long wires out from the pole, and that's the antenna. And
Where do those go, to the ground?
yeah, it's just staked to the ground.
Yep.
I think with an insulator, and his radio receives and transmits on this very long wave radio signal that basically can go around the world. The radio waves bounce off the ionosphere and come back down and keep bouncing, and so that's how you talk to people very far away. And when I say talk, it's all Morse code. So he sits there at a little table that he sets up
Uh-huh.
and keys his Morse code transmitter, and he sends his sort of greeting out, standard greeting that all radio operators use. And when somebody hears it, they'll answer with their call sign, and then he'll send his call sign, the exchange, how strong their signal is being received, and where they're transmitting from. And he's got a log where he writes it all down, they have this website, you can Google Parks on the Air, and I found his name. I went home while he was still up there transmitting, and I went home and I found his name, and it said he was at Hubbardston State Forest.
Huh.
And he's from Worcester.
Ah. They don't have tall enough hills in Worcester?
Well, no, the idea is that they go to different,
I know.
he's been to Miles Standish State Park, and I forget where else he'd been, but.
Not many people do that anymore, right? My dad was one, W1QMS. And on vacations, he'd be doing that in the car. It was awful, because all they would talk about is that.
Big coordinates?
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
I'm
should've-
doing this and I'm.
I'm sorry, I should have called you when you told me.
Well, but I mean, it must be a small group, I'm guessing.
Yeah, probably is.
Relatively speaking.
You know Morse code and.
Yeah, not too many people anymore that know Morse code.
Yeah. You know, he would just talk though, but I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, so.
I think I
So-
might have been the same person, must be 5 years ago, I was up there doing something at the top of Mount Jeff, and somebody had the radio set up there, had the antenna set up. Maybe it was the same guy, I don't know.
Well, so when everything else goes down, you'd still have that, right?
yes, well, no, I'm not sure, because it's not like the crystal radio set that I built when I was 7. There's a box that looks like it cost a couple $1,000s. It may have transistors or something.
Oh.
The big, you're talking about the electromagnetic pulse from nuclear winter that would
Ah,
wipe out
whatever,
all
just.
transistorized
Whoa,
devices.
Wow.
But it doesn't take very much power. It runs off a car battery.
Really?
So, I mean, where people use this sometimes is maybe what you think of when there's been some kind of natural disaster and nobody has power or telephone,
They can still.
they can still communicate with each other this way.
Interesting.
Do you know Morse code?
Not anymore. I know a few letters.
SOS.
SOS.
I know.
That's only 2.
Well, they transmit da 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 is the that's like the here I am, anybody out there? That's CQ.
CQ.
So I know those two, and I know S and O and T and I and H.
What can you spell with those?
Morse code Wordle.
Yeah. It's a puzzle.
All right, a couple anecdotal things that weren't on there, but they're just anecdotal things. I sent around a email about get contacted by the DCR land review
Felicia?
person.
Yeah, actually, I wanted-
Felicia, yep.
Yeah.
Well, Yeah, did you have more to say about that?
Oh, no, just, I just sent it around, and so she's coming out, I think it was October 27th. She hasn't set a time yet, and
Okay.
so if folks wanna go,
Yeah, I want to expand on that because Felicia, she's moonlighting as a restriction monitor there. Her real job is new acquisitions of land
Okay.
or
Oh.
restrictions. If you can make it that day, I've been remiss in closing the loop with you on these potential
Oh, yeah.
pieces of
Yep.
property, but
Yep.
she's the contact
Oh,
for
okay.
that.
Is that the person we ran into over at Malone?
No, that was Emily
No.
from North County
Oh.
Land
That's
Trust.
North County. She's DCR.
This
Oh,
was
wait a
a
minute.
DCR person.
No, that was a different day. Sorry, we ran into one of the stewardship people from Water Resources.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't Felicia. Yeah. I don't remember, Jennifer, I think was her name. I forget. But anyway, if,
Yeah.
I mean, the Ware River area is not a high priority area for them anymore in terms of new acquisitions. But if it's something particularly attractive, they can still be lured. So if you wanted to bend your ear either about a particular
Yeah.
target that you had in mind,
Yeah.
or more generally about how open space can work with
yep,
DCR and looking
Yeah.
at these types of opportunities.
yeah, so they definitely make worthwhile.
There's a side conversation that can be had that day.
Be a good contact to develop there, yeah. That's good to know. Another little trivia thing. Steph got accepted into the next Keystone thing, which will be in
Oh, the women's
October.
Keystone?
Yep,
Yep.
so that was good news. She
So
was
is that
happy.
this?
We were happy, not just she, we were happy to hear that, so
Yeah.
that'll be good.
When is that?
The end of October,
Cool,
26th.
great, congratulations.
Thanks.
Have fun.
She'll be nervous it's leaving Bob in charge of the farm.
Have to get the tractor fixed.
Any
Those
Or maybe
800
not.
pounds.
Or not. Hopefully.
Well, the big thing is those bales of hay to get them into the hay feeder. How many pounds did you say those were?
700 to 800 pounds.
Yeah.
The kids at the farm and I can't carry those.
You can flip them over with your little tractor.
Actually, the
knows.
little
We
tractor
did get them
can
on the
carry-
forks, but we had to have the kids on the back of.
So I can pick them up with the forks, but you have to.
Wow.
I can't pick it up with a spear, but I can pick it up with a spear. I can pick it up the long way and stuff it into the feeder.
Yeah,
But I can pick it up with the fork sideways, and I have to negotiate and kind of spin around and get it lifted up and angle it, and then get out on the other end and get the forks underneath it and lift it.
Flip
At
it.
any rate, we'll survive, but hopefully we'll get that fixed.
before winter.
So, any other new business that I didn't have, that anybody else wants to bring up?
Just a point of information, crossing out the subcommittee thing, just to let everybody know what that's about. So Tim and I went to the Nate's roundtable, was it a couple weeks ago now?
Yeah,
And,
for all boards and committees.
Yeah, and one of the things that they had there was Carolyn from KP Law, I can't remember her last name.
Murray, I think?
Murray.
Yeah.
Murray, gave a presentation on, basically it was the training thing for open meeting law. And one of the things that came up during her presentation, I can't remember if somebody asked a question about it or it was part of her presentation, but if you form an official subcommittee, if any committee forms a subcommittee, it then becomes, it has to fall under the open meeting, it will fall under the open meeting law, which means the meeting has to be publicized 48 hours in advance. You have to have a quorum of the subcommittee. And so, since we were having these meetings at Tim's house, we decided we didn't really want to have that be an open meeting and have the whole town there. Cause he's gotten really good at making coffee, but anyway, so that's,
So, working group.
yes,
It's
so
a
it's a working
working
group, a team, whatever you wanna call it, but we can't call it a subcommittee.
Yeah, and if it fits into the working group category, because we don't make any official decisions.
Right,
We just,
yeah.
we just gather information and bring it to this meeting. So-
It's the deliberation part that
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
dicey sometimes.
that's the key word is deliberation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't deliberate.
We don't think.
We're not even
And the answer to the oft-asked question about what is a quorum? If you've got room for 8 people on the committee and you only have 6 people on the committee, but there was supposed to be 8, but they're missing a couple people, the quorum is still based on the 8, not the 6.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
CPC's in trouble then, because we need a couple more people.
Well, don't deliberate.
Don't worry, we don't. Not lately. Ah, interesting. Are you sure about that?
Yes, somebody asked the
So we have
question.
to either fill all those seats, or have everybody there all the time, or change the number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are our 3
Well, but your
options too.
CPC is required to have certain people on it though.
Correct.
By law,
Right.
so you can't change the number. You-
Well, the at-large you could, I think. Oh, it depends how it's set up.
I don't know.
Now I'm gonna have to go read all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so those are 2 little tidbits that came up with that. There's a really, it was a long meeting, but the presentation had a lot of people interested enough to, and it started expanding outside of the presentation to get questions answered, and so it was worth being there. Did Candace sent around the presentation that Carolyn gave? Did she send that out to the town? Anybody on the town? Did any of you guys get it?
I don't recall getting it.
I got it, so maybe it's just the people who were at the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll send it to everybody, her
Okay.
presentation. It was a PowerPoint, but they couldn't get the
Of course not.
the system working on next door, so Nate made copies of the PowerPoint. So we all had little PowerPoint copies, but Candace sent those around, so I'll send those to everybody.
And it's real helpful, because if you have a question on that, instead of going to online, if you know you can get to the it's very helpful if you're stuck on some questions there. So. Oh, and be sure you take your ethics test. Huh, everybody? Right? Everybody's okay with that? You're all up to
How
date?
often do you have to take it?
Every
2 years.
year? 2 years?
2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whenever Candace rattles your cage.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even her doing it, it's in some other entity that now
Oh, but-
reminds people, right?
No,
'Cause I kept
well,
on telling-
She'll let people know.
She sends out the information.
does she?
Yeah,
Okay.
she sends them the information.
Yeah.
Send out a thing.
'Cause she's a stickler, which is a good thing. If the rule is good, then we should all be abiding by it. If it's not a good rule, get rid of it. So Rick, did you do the testing?
And how did it come out?
Well, no, 'cause I was sort of reminding him about it, and then you'd forget, and then.
I've never been an ethical person anyway.
Oh, stop. Well, that's just it. A rose by any other name smells as sweet, all of the committee thing, subcommittee, so whatever.
All right,
10:25.
you're right.
Unless you wanna skip October and go for 11/1, but I think we should do 10:25, right? And
10:25.
that's gonna be brainstorming some
Next-
ideas for the
Next
ARPA.
meeting, 10:25.
10:04.
Are you gonna be at Keystone then?
No, it's the next day, 26th.
Yeah, Thursday through Saturday.
Oh.
But I might be packing.
Oh, no.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, so let's talk about the kind of data you wanna collect.
I got something for you, real quick. It's a fun run. You can read all about it. I know you're a runner.
Thank you.
I'll tell
You
you.
just have to figure out what you're gonna dress up
We're
as.
doing a,
That's like next,
costume
this
fun
weekend or
run
next.
on.
Oh, I saw the, on
Yes.
the sign.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I'm telling people about it since the first one,